Welcome to CDMO Career Stories, part of the Metric Podcast Network. The careers that shape the CDMO and biopharma industry rarely follow a straight line. This show is about the people behind them. Every episode, we sit down with senior leaders and commercial practitioners to talk about the decisions that define them, how they build and lead high-performing teams, how they win business, and where the talent landscape is heading next.
Hi everyone, welcome to day 2 here at DCAT in New York. I'm here with Amar Karandikar. Amar, for people that may not know you, could you give a little introduction to yourself?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. I head the BD function at Aragen for their small molecule CDMO business, which includes analytical services, drug substance, and drug product.
Fantastic. So how did you get into the industry?
It was purely by chance, actually. So back in the day, this was 2001. And I got a call from a company called Piramal, and they were looking for someone in strategy. And that's how I got into this business.
Okay. And what, I guess, in terms of pivotal moves, you spent 20 years, well, more than 20 years at Piramal. Tell me the reason why you chose to move to Aragen after that long.
So, 22 years actually at Piramal. And that was a long, it didn't feel long because I got an opportunity to do a lot of different things for them.
Okay.
Right from strategy, project management, proposals, and at the end of it, heading the commercial function for them globally for their CDMO business. So grew their business from $0 to $600 million over a 15-year period, put in teams globally, 15 different sites. So it was an exciting journey. Also a BU head for the nutrition business for a while. So it kept me excited. And, in terms of value addition, it was tremendous for patients. And it gave me the sort of platform to help them out to grow their CDMO function and not make the same mistakes that we did in learning how to grow. So in terms of growing and boosting the next 5 years into becoming a large CDMO.
Fantastic. So I guess a pivotal bit that you just picked up on there was the patient care, right? Mm-hmm. That's ultimately why we all do it and why yourself does it from day to day running in. So I guess one of the main reasons was that you felt like you took Piramal to a point where you were happy to give it to someone else to continue that, but at the same time, you could help Aragen that we're at that a little bit further back and now get to where Piramal was. Do you think that they're on the same trajectory that you got at Piramal? Do you think you're in a good place?
Different companies, different value propositions, different strategies. Aragen is primarily a science-based company. So DNA of the company is science. They like to do problem solving, and they have a very different outlook to what growth would mean versus a Piramal, for example, which is primarily manufacturing.
Okay.
So the mindset's very different. The relationships that they have with customers are different. And in terms of where they see themselves adding value to patients' lives is very different. So Aragen is primarily science-driven. They want to solve the problem quickly, very agile, and they want to get to clinic as soon as possible. So that's the primary objective. Whether it's small molecule, large molecule, doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
And it's a India-centric business at this point in time. So it's got an Eastern Asian flavor to it in terms of value proposition.
Fantastic. And again, just going back to your Piramal days, you wore many hats, right? You joined there as manager of business development and slowly saw through the ranks. When did you decide leadership was the right time for you? What was the pivotal moment in that?
That's an interesting question. So I don't think I've changed my mindset since my early days. I was always in an environment where it was a team that created value. I always worked in bringing people together and showing the path or shining the torch for people. It just happens that people report into you eventually. So it's not something that was a eureka moment, but it's something that is always with you, but just formalizes at a later stage.
Okay. And I guess what shaped you going into leadership though? You say it was like you was maybe always been a player coach, right? But was there a point where someone came to you and said, right, you need to head up this team? And was there any pushback from yourself?
Yeah, I mean, everyone gets opportunities to step up, and everyone's on their own journey. So I've had multiple opportunities in my career where it was put to me, hey, here's an opportunity to step up. You've never done this before. Do you want to do it? I've never I've always felt ready to take the next step. And simply because I can see how I can add value to that particular setup or team. As long as you can add value, you don't have to question whether you can step up.
Okay.
And that's happened throughout my career.
Nice. Yeah. And I guess you mentioning it's happened throughout your career. I look at your career and it genuinely does look like that. But I will be honest, there's a lot of people in the industry where it's not as linear in terms of that. Is there any rejection in there throughout your time at Piramal or at Aragen that shaped you, where it may look linear from an outside perspective, but it wasn't, and you maybe had some learning curves that you learned from?
Definitely. So by nature, I'm very curious, like most of us are in the pharma industry. And I don't like when I don't know something. So when I was in the front end as a BD, I realized I don't understand the execution part as well as it should.
Okay.
And I actually took a lateral move into project management after being a BD, which is very unheard of.
Yeah.
And that's primarily because I wanted to understand what happens in execution, what are the challenges in the back end. And I did that for almost, I want to say 3 years. And to me, that added so much to my knowledge of the whole execution cycle that it helps me today when I go to operations and say, hey, I want to get this done. I understand what are the challenges, where what lever we need to turn. So I feel it wasn't a step back. It was more of a lateral move because I wanted it.
Nice. And so when you say you spent time in project management to understand that side, so you understood it more from a technical perspective?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Because the commercial piece is set, but you need to understand what's below the hood to really be able to create value.
Did you have to step into project management for that? Is there a chance that the people that you have in your teams, right, your business development professionals, is there a chance that they can get that technical exposure still being in business development, working a bit closer with project management?
Yeah, you don't have to be a project manager to be a great BD. I mean, I've had people who don't have a technical background at all. I've had IT people reporting into me who've been great salespeople in pharmaceutical CDMO industry. So it's not, it's a personal journey. Like I said, I was just that curious to know a little bit more than the average person. And that helps me to guide my teams and even the project management team in terms of execution, what to do, how to execute it and strategize. BDs don't need to do project management. A BD needs to be commercially strong as a primary. That's their role. Technical aspects can be taught that to anybody.
So what's your approach to building high-performing teams? What do you look for that might not necessarily be in a CV?
Yeah, so building a team takes time. So it's not a machine. People are people. They're emotional. You've got to So when you're hiring people, it's a 1 hour window, an interview that you have, and you try to figure out, is this person a cultural fit? From a commercial perspective, the number one thing you need to see is energy, right? Attitude. A lot of people say attitude, but what about attitude? It's the people who can take the hits and still get up. That's very important. Because you get a lot of rejection in the commercial function. You need to be able to take those and still with a smile go on to the next prospect, right? It's hard to judge, but we try our best to figure out if this guy can take hits and still stand up after that. The third thing is teamwork. You don't need this person to be a lone wolf necessarily. They need to be able to operate in a team environment. Very important. There are people who are brilliant at their job, but they just suck as teammates. So it just depends on what the need of your business is and whether you can make it work with that individual. And the fourth most important thing is, are they trainable? Because every company has their own value proposition. Your company will have your own value proposition, and you want them to learn what it is and to be able to tweak what they put out there. If you see that flexibility in a person, that's the person you want to hire.
Fantastic. And a couple of things there. You mentioned in terms of internal as well. Would you say their internal brand as a business development professional is as important as their external brand?
I think your brand is your brand. So because at the end of the day, trust comes from an individual to an individual. It's not businesses selling to each other, it's people selling to each other. So we promote internal talent, absolutely, wherever we feel they can step up. And there's a lot of coaching given. We take people from project management proposals operations, those who've got those characteristics and traits, and train them up. But I also believe bringing in fresh ideas from outside is very important to keep the organization current, because you don't know what you don't know. So it's always good to learn what's going on in the outside industry, bring in best practices into the company. So I believe in a healthy mix between new talent and growing in-house talent.
Great. What's been your biggest hiring mistake, and what did it teach you?
Okay. So you always so hindsight is 2020, right? So it's happened a couple of times. No one's perfect, right? So we've hired this great person with a huge Rolodex, said all the right things, hired them. They just were not a team player. So individual contributor, awesome. But in any team setting, they were not able to pick up the team. They brought the team down. And it's all about psychology, right? A word said here or a word said there can have a huge impact on the morale of the team. To me, even if you're an amazing performer, but if you bring the team down, you're not going to be helpful. So trying to figure out if this person is a team player is the number one thing I look for. Because you could be an average performer, but if you add to the team's performance, I'll hire you.
How do you develop internal talent versus bringing in external experience?
So typically you can spot a salesperson or a commercial function person from a distance. It doesn't matter what department you're working in. 10-minute chat with the person tells you if they have the flair to keep the conversation exciting. Are they likable? Do they have the drive? And you can spot those people. And those are your salespeople. And typically we have, we ask them a question and say, hey, would you like to take a shot at being a salesperson? And usually these people are high energy, do not want to be put in a desk. Typically, they want to be out there traveling. And we show them a growth path. We test them out for a couple of months. I have a specific test that I make them go through, cold calling and such, because that's the ABCD of sales. And those who can make it then have a career path with us.
Have you ever had someone come to you that wants to do sales that's not in it and rejected them, and why?
Absolutely, all the time. Because most people think they can do sales. It's it's a bunch of calls and traveling and doing meetings, and they don't realize that all those meetings need to be set up by themselves. There's no one to help them out. And I've had lots of people come to me, and I put them through the rigor of cold calling, essentially. And I would say 85% of the people come back and tell me they don't want to do it. Because if you can't do cold calling, you can't be in sales.
Interesting. And what does your current landscape look like? I guess, what would you say has changed in the last 3 years?
In terms of
business development in your teams?
Yeah, so we're seeing a couple of trends. A lot of the good people who have tenure in other companies are not looking at making a change simply because of the turmoil in the industry. So it's almost like they're comfortable where they are. The ones out there are the ones which are not probably the best candidates. And then you have a few unicorns who are ready to make the change. So to me, finding good people is my biggest role. Finding the right people, motivating them, and raising their game. That's my job as the head of commercial, right? And that's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
So when you find someone good, you've got to be able to motivate them to join your journey and keep them excited, right? Support them and show them a path to where they want to get to in their career.
And that leads me on. What's the one role you're struggling to fill, and why would you say that is?
So so here's my philosophy. I don't fill a role till I'm happy with the person. So I would keep the role open. There's a lot of people are in a rush to fill a role or a territory, but if you have the wrong person, you're just wasting time, and it's not productive for the company or for the individual. It's not fair. So I keep the position open till I find the right person for the role, because that person's going to be with us for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, right? So in terms of what roles are open, we've just filled up most of them. But it's taken us a while, is what I'm saying. All right.
I know.
Up to a year in some cases. But I think we found the right people.
Yeah.
We have a good team. Now it's about marching forward.
That's an interesting take, Amar, because I guess as a recruiter, sometimes we ask the question, when do you want to fill this role? And they always say yesterday, right? So, but they then go and fill the role. What would you say to someone what do you do, I guess, would be my question. What do you do with that territory if no one's focusing on it? Is that not a loss of revenue in itself?
No, we don't do that. So there's multiple ways. So we have the next level of manager who's managing that overall territory. They step in as a player coach and they run that territory till we fill it up. So we make sure it's never vacant. It's either the BDM, and if there's no BDM, we have the regional head who runs that territory. Absolutely.
Is there a chance that their workload becomes too much though, and then they become unhappy and they leave?
No, so it's their manager's responsibility to make sure that they take off anything extra that is not necessary for them for that period of time. And in Aragen, we have a lot of flexibility that way, and very the leadership is very customer focused, oriented, and it's a pleasure working here because you have that flexibility to push and take on or take off workload as you feel appropriate.
Fantastic. If you left tomorrow, what does your successor look like, and what are their characteristics?
Yeah, someone who believes in the journey, in the Aragen journey, because every company has their own values, their own strategy, their own journey. At the end of the day, someone who cares about patients and who cares about building a team, taking them along, working shoulder to shoulder, and delivering medicines to customers. Someone who understands the complexity of working with a diverse group of teammates from India, from Europe, from the US, someone who has that cultural sensitivity, so all of that. So it's someone who's experienced all of that in their career is very important.
Okay. And what motivates you to continue your career path?
Yeah, so when I started my career, it was all about trying to take care of my family, my kids, because at the end of the day, those are the people who are the most important in your life, and they still are. The emotional connect comes only if you've experienced something in life. And this is 2020, actually, COVID. One of my best friends based in Miami, he was diagnosed with brain cancer, myeloma. And it was a big shock to everybody. He's young, he had everything going for him, 3 kids. And unfortunately, he passed 3 years later. But that really brought home to me, and since that day, the emotional connect to what I'm doing, and we say patient centricity and customer centricity, but that really drove home that it's not a word that applies to someone else. It starts at home. It starts with you, and everything I do and my team does, eventually, in some shape or form, impacts others and our lives. So to me, that beacon that was lit is burning bright, and I want to make sure I can help someone else out there who has a disease which is terminal, or giving hope is the biggest thing you can do to patients, and my motivation is to give hope and make it happen.
That's an amazing answer. Sorry to hear that, and thank you for sharing. Feeling comfortable to share that. So we like to close the podcast with a quick fire round. So what's the best career advice you've had?
So the best career advice I got was from my first boss in 2001. 3 months in, I was 24, 25 years old. He sat me down. Every day I would go to him and say, fire this guy and fire that guy, and he was useless and he's not doing his job. And I was this young kid, like a bull in a china shop, high energy, trying to do the right thing. And I had these 40, 50-year olds, in the company who were not doing what they're supposed to be doing, in my mind. And he sat me down after 3 months and said, Amar, I want to give you some advice. And he said, you're rarely going to find people who are going to match your expectations on day one, right? That doesn't mean you keep firing people. The trick is, if you can raise the game of the people you meet and work with, you have won. So they may not believe they can do more or better or a different thing, but if you can work with them shoulder to shoulder, and show them the vision that it can happen, and they do it, you're going to succeed. That's what I do.
Fantastic. And one trait every leader in your sector should have this year?
It's sort of similar to what I just said. I think player coach is very important. Sitting in an ivory tower and being air traffic control is one thing, but actually getting down on the ground and showing them how it is done boosts the morale, but also improves their habits, and they also believe in what you're saying. They know that it's backed by stuff that you can execute yourself. So working with the troops in the trenches is very important.
Cool. And last question. Can you think of a book, podcast, or film that has influenced your thinking recently or in the past?
Yeah, this is going to be a funny one. So I'm sure some of you have watched this movie Prometheus, and there's a dialogue in there, and it says, big things always have small beginnings. And I always say this to my teammates, my friends: if you want to make a change, don't shoot big. Start with something small, but start. Big things will happen.
Fantastic bit of advice. Thanks, Amar.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.